Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in our old friend Scott Ian Lewis of Carnifex. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man, it's always a pleasure to see you and hear new music from you. You're like one of the most prolific bands I can think of. Over 15 years as a band, celebrating the 15th anniversary of the debut with an incredible new album that also has some cool callbacks. Just in general, man, before we get going, how are you? How's the band? How's everybody doing? It's just been such a weird time in our lives, and I never want to lose that opportunity to just check in and make sure you're good, your family, everybody's okay.
Yeah, it's been a pretty mixed bag, to be completely honest. Yeah, we had some dark days, no doubt. Going a year and a half without working, that presents a lot of, just very practical problems with being a 35-year-old who lives in Southern California. Kind of doesn't work. And then, there was some good stuff too. We got to spend a year in the studio, which we have never been able to do ever. So we really had some great momentum while we were writing, which was cool. Yeah, it's been a mixed bag. I'm starting to pull out of the darkness, I think. But truthfully, I was in a hole for a minute there. But I think, we did some dates in July that really injected some life into me. Getting some positive feedback on the record is doing a lot. And then, we're about to leave for tour in just a couple of days. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Right on. And the record is killer and people are hyped for this tour, and we'll talk all about it. But yeah, man, thank you for being candid. It's not all, I know some people were like living it up and like, remember when we thought this was going to be like, oh, it'll be a couple of weeks. We're going to stay home, like camp when you were a little kid and you made a pillow for it in the living room. No, this was not that. And a lot of people were struggling and suffering, and a lot of people lost people as well as their incomes. So it's just, I'm sensitive to that. I know it's like not the most metal thing to talk about, but like I'm very who I am in my feelings, and yeah, I'm not going to apologize for it. So I appreciate you for being frank. It's okay to not be all right after this, and we're getting it back slowly. We're getting it back. I did hear you make a comment though somewhere else that was like, yeah, if this tour somehow doesn't happen, we're screwed like forever. And I was like, I hope not. I know that's always looming. It's looming in the back of everybody's mind, but it struck a chord with me, man. Like, I don't really read other people's stuff or watch other videos. We just live in our ghost cult bubble. But craziness. It's like that for a lot of bands, the harsh reality of bands breaking up, not coming back, not being able to complete projects, it's tough.
Yeah, it's been a real challenge, especially because of a band like us. I mean, I quit my job to tour in November of 2006. So my life at this point is completely set up to be a touring musician. So going a year and a half, that's hard. Plus, we started the pandemic in a really tough spot because it was off the back of a tour that we didn't play any shows on. But we were 12 hours away from bus call on day one. So all the production costs related to a tour starting up, we'd already spent that money, and then we didn't play a single show. So we started the pandemic 70K in the hole. It was not a good place, man.
Yeah, people do not really understand what it takes for a touring band to operate and how much investment that is before you make back $1. So again, all respect and appreciation that you guys are killing it with this new record and hyped to come back, and we're hyped to have you back. So yeah, man, let's get into some Graveside Confessions, man. This is such a brutal record, and you guys always do such a good job. But in particular, your vocals just like shock me awake. They're so just gruesome. I don't have enough adjectives for the vocal job on this, man. I got to give it up to you.
That's kind. Thank you. Yeah, this time around with Shawn doing the record and doing all the engineering, like we kind of didn't follow the rules of recording, like I just recorded with a SM58, just held it. Who gives a fuck? And in doing that, you kind of get a unique sound. And I think even though maybe it's not perfect, if you put it under stereographed, I'm sure people could say, God, got to get rid of that frequency. That's too loud. You got to cut that frequency there. But we weren't about that this time. This time around, we're like, let's just make it as raw and real as we can. And so that's what we did. And I'm glad. I like the idea that you can like almost feel my hot breath in your headphones. It's like I'm right there. And that's kind of what we were going for.
Right on. And I always appreciate all the different little range of voices you do. There knock on anybody else. Some people are just like, they got the one style and that's what they rock, and there's not a lot of variation. But you definitely take listeners on a journey, not just lyrically and vocally, but just like you're stylistically within the same song, which I really, for a veteran band, it's just great to see that maturation.
Yeah, I think it's because I kind of took influence from a number of different vocalists. It's like I really love Danny Filth. I really love Brandon from Bleeding Through. I really love Corpse Grinder. Like, these are all vocalists that I looked up to when the band was starting out, and so I kind of just incorporated all the styles that I looked up to and respected.
Right on. I also hear like there's like a little more pronounced sort of, not, I don't want to go all the way over to symphonic black metal, but like I heard some Dimmu in there. There's like a little bit of like these wonderful little audio things, these audible things that creep in and complement the voice really well.
Thanks. Yeah, for us, we're always trying to find ways to add atmosphere. And I think that carefully placed atmosphere can really draw the listener into kind of this world that we're trying to create, and this escape from reality that we're trying to get people to come with us. And I think anytime you can add a layer that elevates the music, but your core sound is at the center of it, then that's a good chance as a musician to try some new stuff.
Killer. Out of curiosity, just because you mentioned it, are you a guy that does kind of the exact same vocal style, hand, microphone placement, those kind of things in the studio that you do live? Because sometimes live is a different animal for everybody.
Well, we tried to do that on this one. Typically when you're in the studio, you're screaming into a mic that's sitting in a cradle, and you have a pop filter, and you're wearing headphones, and you're standing this far away from the microphone. But that's not what you do live, right? That's like the opposite of what you do live. Live, you got monitors blasting your head off, and you're just screaming into a mic. And that's how we did this record. I did it with monitors and a 58, and we kind of didn't care about the rules. But I think what came out of it speaks for itself.
Absolutely. 100%. Anybody who hears this, they're going to get, like I said, a wake-up call, man. This is like the music we need right now. We've had a rough time. We get some fierce jams.
Fierce catharsis.
That's it. Yeah, very cathartic feeling record, man. And I was going to ask you about, obviously you always have very similar themes, but I was going to ask, obviously given the source material of life lately, but there are some great songs: Pray for Peace, Seven Souls, Carry Us Away, Cemetery Wander. So like, yeah, some of these tracks are, can make the mind go a little bit when you start to try, like, I'm trying to hear these lyrics. What am I hearing?
But what the fuck is this psycho talking about?
Wow. I also, I'm sure I walk down the street like, and in my ears is like, what you're doing. And so like, I'm sure people will be like, what is he on? But, I
mean, it's therapy for me, I went through some dark times this past year, and it wasn't that that's new stuff I've dealt with. It was just that the isolation of the shutdown just compounded everything, and it took away the things I loved, metal, touring, seeing my friends, all that stuff. So it did really put me in a poorer headspace, and I kind of slipped back into a lot of, self-destructive behavior. But I tried to find that peace in writing, that therapy in writing. And I knew, like, look, this time will pass. I just got to get this truth on the page. And then when we're on the other side of it, it's going to mean a lot to other people, and it's going to mean a lot to me. So I just did my best to stay the course and just put as much of, my insecurity on the page as I could.
Nice work. Well, I appreciate that. I think people will hear that and appreciate that. Being that you are a veteran band with many releases now, and even paying tribute to your first one, it's like, what can we expect from the tour in terms of like putting in new songs in a set list and stuff like that?
Well, we do have kind of, we have 35 minutes on this tour coming up. So yeah, at this point with 8 records, we're picking and choosing songs is the reality. We can't play everything. So, I mean, really, we try to find this balance between not being the band that goes up and just plays all this new shit. The audience is like, yeah, but where are the classics, But at the same time, we don't want to just be doing, kind of like, oh, here are just the hits, like, whatever, we'll take the easy way out. So we try to find that blend of like the songs we know the audience loves that we also love, and then being like, all right, we really like these couple new ones from the new album. Let's start getting these into the set. So I'd say it's pretty eclectic, and we try to do our best to service the new record, but also play the hits, you know?
Right on. And in addition to those hits, let's talk about these Graveside editions. These last 3 tracks on the album are a throwback to your very first album, re-recorded, under a new light. As you know, playing in a band for many years, as you perform these songs over and over, they change slightly from the original album versions, and the fans get used to hearing them live, right? Because like you
True.
live with the records, you live with streaming and Spotify and YouTube, and then you go out and hear it live, and it's like what the band's comfort is. But I was wondering, like, what did you learn from redoing these songs about your first music you made with this band?
What did I learn? Oh man, that we were really just running on passion. We were just running on heart. We were just putting riffs that we liked next to each other. Those early songs they're through played arrangements, so they're kind of unlike how we arrange songs now, where we try to anchor them with like a chorus or a repeating part. So we had all the passion, but we didn't really know much about songwriting. And it's kind of an interesting thing to look back, because it's like, the songs still hold up, no doubt, as far as just fun and brutality. But I do see ways where like, we probably could have made that a little better, or done this or done that, now that what we know about writing. But I honestly am really happy with that first record, because we recorded it. It was so kind of pure. Like, no one was telling us what to do. We recorded it with our own $600. Me, Shawn, and Cory did that record in 2 days. We did it on a weekend. It was all first takes. We didn't play to a click. It was just, we were just having fun. And so to be here all these years later, the 4 of us again, we were just like, man, let's just have some fun, embrace those good times when we were just kids and didn't have a care in the world other than how to write some heavy music.
That's beautiful, man. Of course, I have to ask about the Korn cover. It is fantastic. Personally, I love Korn. I'm a huge new metal fan. I don't care. I'm like everybody else. It was like came into the consciousness, and I didn't expect it to become a big popular thing. But I love the track selection. Dead Bodies Everywhere, very underrated, deep cut track from Korn. And you guys did your own Carnifex spin on it, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, that's really credit to Shawn. He's the main music writer in the band, and when he did, actually, truthfully, we had another cover song queued up for the record. Originally we actually recorded Cannibal Corpse's Hammer Smashed Face, and we were like, oh, that'll be the cover for the record. But then in trying to like make it, gnarlier, we like kind of couldn't. It was kind of like, it's really just a fully formed extreme metal song. I don't really see where we could add to this other than just do a different version. Whereas with Dead Bodies Everywhere, it's like, it's half Carnifex and half Korn, and the song kind of falls in the middle. It's almost like a deathcore new metal song in a way. And so it was just like, all right, here's a chance to take a song we love, a song we know the fans love, and then put our fingerprints all over it. And also when we put it on the record, it kind of keeps the record from being atonal. We really wanted it, because it's a longer piece of music, it's over an hour. We really wanted it to be a journey with peaks and valleys and different feels. And, we thought the theme was in line with the record, and it just gave enough of a different sound to that song that it would fit nicely, within the spectrum of the album.
Right on. And it seems like, at least from an outsider's perspective, that the reception has been very good, which is like, you never know. Covers are a funny thing. People love them, but also they're an opportunity to open yourself up to stuff. So like, it seems like the fans dig it.
Yeah, it actually streamed really well, which was awesome, because I don't think we really like thought of it as like it would be, a hit or anything. It was more like just kind of something to start teasing the record. So we put that one out back in April, just to kind of let people know we're not, we're still alive, So yeah, I'm glad that it got some of its own momentum, and when we were playing it live in July, people were really having a good time with it. So that was nice.
That's awesome. Hope to hear some more stuff like that again in the future, and bring on some more covers. That was a lot of fun. I always love, you guys are a very visual band, and whatever you do, your album artwork, shirts, posters, you guys always take a very serious take on your visuals, which is I like for my bands to do. So I love this album cover. It's a little understated and even gothy a little bit, but I really dug it. It almost could have been a Moonspell album cover. It was that cool.
That's cool. Yeah. The bleakness of the cover is, I think there's a parallel between the artistry of the album and then the music on the album. And it's that at first glance, they're both fairly bleak. The lyrics to the record they're really actually pretty sad, and it doesn't have a happy ending. It's more questions than it is answers. And I think the cover in itself is kind of the same. You don't really get a conclusion from that cover. You kind of just stare into the void and you're like, oh, wow. And the longer you stare at it, the more detail you see, the more subtext start to emerge. And I think the more you relate to it. And I think that's the parallel with the cover and the music, is that artwork and then what you get out of the music is very similar. The longer you sit with it and the more you let it take you somewhere, the more you realize, wow, it is much more than what meets the eye.
Right on. I just got a couple more for you, man. You've been terrific. And again, appreciate the candor. It's not easy to talk about all these things and put them into words, but you have done nicely. Awesome shirt collab with AEW's Malachi Black. You guys are always very creative and do a lot of fun out of the box things, comic books and other things. So I had this shirt collab come along. I didn't know he was a big Carnifex fan.
Well, he was like a big metalhead, and he reached out to us actually and was said like, hey, I enjoy the band. I have my own clothing line. Are you interested in doing something? And we're always up for like this meets that sort of stuff, where we get a chance to try to say, hey, we got some people over here that like this. You got some people over here that like that. Let's put them in the same room and see what happens. So I thought it was a great chance to try to do that, to try to bring some Carnifex to some wrestling fans and bring some wrestling fans to Carnifex. And it was cool, man. The shirt sold out in like 2 days. So I had a great call with him prior. It was nice to chat with him. I think he's in Texas. I can't remember exactly now. So hopefully we can, get some FaceTime in and say what's up when we roll through Texas on this tour.
Right on. Have you been a big AEW wrestling fan in the short period of time they've been around?
No, I can't say that I am. My experience with wrestling is kind of back in the old days when it was, Undertaker and Hogan and Diamond Dallas Page and all that stuff. So like I kind of remember those days when I was younger, and then when I really got into music, that's where all my focus was.
I do feel like wrestling is like metal fans who haven't discovered metal yet. A lot of times, like that personality,
right?
we have a lot in common. There's a lot of overlap. The Venn diagram.
I think you're right, dude. I think you're right. That's funny the way you worded that.
Yeah, and of course, like all the wrestling, have always leaned on rock and metal a lot, and even still to this day. So yeah, I'm just interested to see how AEW continues to grow and branch, and not just the brand, but actually like Malachi and people like that are like, oh, I'm doing this awesome. I can do my own thing. I don't have to wait for them to do it for me, which is obviously the opposite model of everything else, and kind of your model. So you see like a little lineup there with Carnifex. That's how you guys do.
Yeah, I think if you're, obviously they're probably more like business focused than art focused, but the goal is the same. Is you're trying to reach as many people as you can with your product. So yeah, I hope we can actually. It'd be cool to do some in-person stuff, like perform at one of their events or something. Like that's really what would be exciting to me. Is like try to actually get there physically.
Yeah, see, to me, that's more. I know, like rock and metal fans are always like the Super Bowl. I'm like, forget the Super Bowl. Wrestling.
The Super Bowl, bro. We ain't getting anywhere near the Super Bowl.
Nobody wants. But people are always like, why don't they have more guitar-driven music at the Super Bowl when sports, or like the World Series, or like hockey? Because they love our riffs when they break to commercial, and they love our riffs when it's a timeout, but they don't love our riffs for the everybody else, and they're not all for every audience. We get this. Rated X for extreme, but I get it. And and not the Super Bowl. That would be Cannibal Corpse maybe someday. I don't know, probably not in my lifetime, but that would be killer.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing
because George, and those guys love football. They love football. George, can you imagine definitely. George going on like the pregame show talking about like, oh yeah, man, I love Tampa Bay this year is looking good with Brady. It'd be awesome. It'd just be awesome.
It really would, actually. It'd probably be a hit, to be honest with you. Like, I'm kind of thinking about like seeing him up there on the dais, like holding him. I'd be like, you know what? That might be the first Super Bowl I ever tuned in for.
I feel you, man. I mostly these days watch for the commercials. My team sucks. But yeah, man, we got this is such a good time for you guys, and we got this big tour coming on. And honestly, my hope against hope is that everybody takes care of themselves and each other. And as I want to say a lot, and Black Dahlia Murder, Carnifex, Rivers of Nile, so many, so many good bands, and we need this. Like we need this back in our lives.
We do.
We need you to get to do a show and hand somebody a vinyl over a merch table and give a safety arm bump or whatever it
Right.
is, and yell into a stick for 35 minutes, man. And that's what we need to get that aggression out and punch people in a good way.
It's true. It's I kind of equate it to a rage room. It's somewhere that you can go and do, behave that isn't normally in a way that's not normally acceptable. But because that's what that place is designed to do, it's all good. And then when you leave, you get to leave it behind you and be like, "Ooh, that felt good."
Right on. I always like to end these interviews with a wild card question. They're not very inventive, but they're mine. So the wild card question I picked out for you, which you may have been asked in the past, I'm not sure. But if you had to pick your top 5 horror movies, what would they be off the top of your head?
Top 5 horror films. Okay, I got it. Exorcist 1, Exorcist 3, 7, The First Conjuring, and the Poughkeepsie tapes.
Ooh, I like that. It's very eclectic choices there.
There's some scary movies there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, 7 is probably the best serial killer film ever. Exorcist 1 is untouchable, probably top 3 ever for the genre. And I like those other choices. Exorcist 3 is a good one, underrated probably to most
Absolutely.
people.
Exorcist 3 is one of my favorite genres where it's like procedural and horror mixed together, where you have someone who doesn't really believe in it, but they're encountering it. And it's that kind of that mix of like, noir and horror. I always like that cross section there.
Right on. And spooky season is upon us, man. As soon as the freaking pumpkin spice comes out, Halloween's around the corner.
It's out.
It's already out. Scotty and Lewis of Carnifex, man. It's always a pleasure to see you. I'm jealous of your neon pentagram, but I'm really stoked for you in Graveside Confessions coming out September 3rd on Nuclear Blast. So out now by the time people see this. But thanks so much for hanging with Ghost Cult, man. And I hope to see you at that show.
Right on. I hope to see you there too.